Thank you for joining me on this special video broadcast. My name is Oladipupo Clement. So on this video, we want to continue again in our series on fundamentals of a winning business. We've established that in order to gain mastery in any area of life, you want to understand the basics, you want to understand the rudiments, you want to understand the fundamentals. In order for you to master any language, you need to understand A to Z of that language. In order to master arithmetic, mathematics, you need to understand 0 to 9. And this is why what we're looking at is so crucial. As simple as they may appear, ignoring them can be to your own peril, especially if your objective and if your intention is to start business somewhere along the line. Even if you decide to go into a social enterprise, even if you decide to run a charity organization, even if you decide to run a non-governmental or not-for-profit organization, these same fundamentals are still very, very essential, right? So let's dive deeper into some other fundamentals. The next important fundamental for a winning business is that you must understand that business is a game of numbers, right? I have seen people who are not so articulate, not so eloquent, they're not so even packaged, but they are big on business. They can tell you the numbers. And listen to me, if you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, or you're a businessman or woman, and numbers is not your strength, then you need team members, who are numerates. You need team members who are numerates. But it's important to understand that at the end of the day, everything comes down to numbers. Two things we count in business, right? We count people and we count money. We count people, we count money, right? And if you get the people right, of course, you get the money right to a very large extent. So stakeholders, are people who are either buying from you, selling with you, contributing their quota one way or another. Members of staff, management, board members, government agencies, vendors, suppliers, and what have you, contractors, and consultants, and all of that, coaches, and all of that. So you need to be numerates, right? If you don't know your numbers, it will affect the degree of your success in business. And let me say this upfront: if you are not good in that, if that's not your area of strength, you are not that numerate, make sure you staff in that area of weakness, right? Make sure you staff in that area of weakness, or have a partner who is strong in that area. Okay, this is so important. I mean, most of us who are Nigerians, I'm sure you're familiar, very, very familiar with our Igbo brothers, people from the eastern part of Nigeria who do so well. Many of them are not graduates. Some of the billionaires that we know, not all of them, are really that educated in that sense of the word, the sense of the four walls of classroom, but they know their numbers. In fact, it is humorously said sometimes that if you ask an Igbo boy, ask him 1 plus 1, he may not know, but tell him 1 naira plus 1 naira, he'll tell you it's 2 naira. And so it tells you something. You've got to be good, you've got to be numerate, because at the end of the day, you don't measure your business success with words, you measure it in numbers. At the end of the day, whatever it is you want to use to design and determine or measure your growth and measure your success will still come back to numbers. So you must have good understanding of numbers, or have someone whose strength is numbers. This is very important. The next important fundamental I need to quickly touch on is that you must understand that business is an adventure of faith and risk. I must tell you this: if you do not have appetite for risk, if you are the risk averse, then business is not for you. This is so crucial. In business, we don't move by sight, we move by faith. If you need to be able to figure everything out before you take the first step, you most likely are not suitable for business. Now, there's nothing wrong with you doing analysis and carrying out feasibility studies and carrying out market research and all of that. But you see, that's why I always say to people, business will always cost you more than you plan. Business planning is very important. Research is very important. But business will always cost, and that's why it is an adventure of faith and risk. You only know in parts, and you can only tell in parts. Especially if you even run business in Nigeria, you can do everything right and still go wrong. And that's why you need a measure of faith. And this is the reason a number of people are slow in decision making, and not knowing that not taking a decision is a decision in itself, right? And sometimes just take the decision. Take the decision, make the bold move, right? And it's a journey of faith. It's an adventure of faith. If you are waiting to see before you execute it, before you act on it, then you are not likely to succeed in business. Business is not a journey of how much startup capital you have, right? It's more about how much you hope to generate, how much you project to generate at the end of the day. Our business started without a dime. We had no cupboard to our name. We had no money to our name. I had a 5-in-1 DexJet printer, laptop I'd been using for 5 years prior to the time we launched out full time in our business, and that was how we got started. And a family friend, loaned us a space where we could share with other people. Right, that was how we got started. Right, it was a journey of faith. It was an adventure of faith. If we wanted everything in perfect condition before we moved, so clearly we would certainly not have started. And probably by now we'll still be in the table of planning and analysis. All right. So business involves more than just designing a business plan. It will cost you more than you plan. Ask anyone who is doing anything meaningful in business. They will tell you, no matter your projections, what you have on paper is important. Having a business plan is critical. Don't get it twisted. Right? Having a plan, having a strategy is very important. But let me be honest with you, what you will meet on ground may be contrary. That's why it's always important to have your worst case scenario and worst case scenario planning. You must also have your best case scenario and of course your mid case scenario, because at the end of the day, if you plan based on what is the worst thing that can happen, then I recall just having a conversation with one of my colleagues in our business, and this guy is based in Port Harcourt. He's working with another firm, another oil and gas firm, and doing really well and often goes offshore. But guess what? Recently he reached out to me and said, see, a lot of people are in need of properties in Port Harcourt. And he was just sharing from his heart, and I could feel his pulse. Now it looks like LifePage is not really, giving attention to Port Harcourt any longer as it used to, and I had to give him some little background. But the key thing I'm trying to bring out here is the fact that when we set out to open up branches in Port Harcourt and Abuja, part of the strategy and part of the plan was that what's the worst thing that can happen is that if we shut down our office operations, if we shut down our administrative operations in those locations, they were meant to be regional offices managing our projects in both north central, northeast, northwest, and of course southeast and south. That was the purpose of those offices. That was the initial strategy. And the worst case scenario we projected was that worst case scenario we have our properties. So even if we have to shut down administrative operations, we will centralize the administrative operations from all of that. So when the gentleman reached out to me and was just talking to me, pouring out his soul and all of those things, I had to now give him the background of what has led to where we are, and that our projects, our properties are still there, right? But for about 3 or almost 4 years, we kept paying salaries, running, costs, and there was nothing. And a bunch of the results we're producing those branches were also still coming from Lagos. And so we figured there was no point, keep spending. We have guest house here, and we had to, we had to make a major change, but if we also waited, and there's a lesson from there, and there's a big lesson from there that only someone who had taken that step would know and would have learned that lesson. It's not just the money that we invested alone, but there were certain levels of experiences that we also garnered from that. So understand, business is an adventure of faith and risk. If you are waiting for perfect condition, you never take any step. So business will always cost you more than you plan. You have to evaluate what are the worst case scenarios, and that's why you need the release of your faith. You need to walk not by sight, you need to walk by faith. Okay, we did a project way back. That project had over 200 million Nigerian naira in variation. Now it took faith to take on such a project. We've never done such ever in the history of our organization at the time, but it took it took faith to take on such a project and to even absorb that level of vision. And I mean, those who knew, who interacted with me at the time could tell that, well, I was unperturbed at the initial stage. Of course, somewhere along the line when I began, my gaze shifted from the project, shifted to the issues, things to set in and like that. So the point I'm trying to make in a nutshell is that these things do happen. So you must recognize business is an adventure of faith and risk, right? Risk is a key to winning. Risk is a key to success in any venture, in any adventure of life. And so whether you are consciously taking risk or not, you are probably the one that is being used even to take that risk. So it's important to recognize this key fact. Risk is a constant factor in business and in life. So your ability to appraise that risk and mitigate such risk is key to business success. So to succeed in business, you need stomach for risk. If you don't have that, don't even bother. Don't bother. One thing I say to people all of the time, especially to people who work with us, who work for us, and people we interact with, and customers, and investors, and partners, and all of that, is it's unfortunate, but this is the reality. Especially if you operate in Nigeria, and I'm sure if you're an entrepreneur in Nigeria right now, you can relate with what I'm saying. It appears as though we guarantee everybody everything, but as entrepreneurs, as business owners, and businessmen and women, we don't seem to be guaranteed anything, right? Our life, it's like our life is on the line. Was on the line, right? And if this succeeds, it's going to be a major breakthrough for a lot of people. But if it also fails, you know what can go wrong, in your life. And so it has to be an adventure of faith. You have to trust God. You have to trust God to make a way and provide everything else. So because if your dream doesn't scare you, it's likely not from God. I believe that this has been helpful. So till I come your way again on this platform, please always remember, winners never quit and quitters never win. So stay inspired till you succeed. Bye for now.